All right, everybody. I think we'll go ahead and get started here. I'd like to welcome you to our Leadership Power Hour. We are honored to have Ursula Gurney join us this afternoon. If you were with us for the opening session this morning, when Dorothy was speaking, one of the words that she used, as well as our keynote speaker, Eddie, is inspire. And in this next hour, I think we are going to be inspired by Ursula. And we hope to have a great conversation with you. So let me introduce Ursula Gurney. She is the N4A immediate past president, as well as the Deputy Director of Athletics and Senior Women's Administrator. Prior to her appointment, she was a Senior Associate AD for Internal Operations, SWA. And as the SWA, Gurney provides administrative leadership in the management and governance of the intercollegiate athletics program and is heavily involved in key decision-making at the institutional, conference, and national levels. She collaborates to address strategic initiatives and departmental goals, serve as a resource to all student athletes and coaches, supports gender equity and Title IX issues, and evaluates performance of departmental employees. Gurney is charged to help foster a culture that embraces diversity and advocates for student athlete welfare. In addition to her N4A involvement, she is also an active member of Women Leaders in College Sports, and she is currently at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. So with that, I'd like to welcome Ursula, and just a couple of quick housekeeping items. The closed caption option has been enabled. And if you would like to see the subtitles at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you could click on the live transcript and then show subtitles. And in order to have you ask questions, we just ask that you raise your hand and then we'll acknowledge you and allow you to ask a question. And without any further ado, Ursula, would you like to start us off by talking a little bit about what you do?
Sure. Thank you. And good afternoon, everybody. I am excited to be here from what is now sunny Kansas City this afternoon. This morning it was snowing, and now in fine Midwest style, it is sunny. So I'm excited to be here on Friday afternoon. Thank you for choosing to spend this time with us on this afternoon. And I'm looking forward to being inspired by this group of individuals also on this call. So just a little bit about myself that wasn't already mentioned. I've been involved in college athletics for nearly 20 years now. It seems like a long time. It's gone by fast, but it's gone by slow on some days. And I currently serve, as was mentioned, as the Deputy Athletics Director and SWA at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. So really what that means is I serve as the number 2 behind the Athletics Director, day to day carrying out the mission of both the Athletics Director and the Chancellor within our department, really serve as the go-between between our coaching staff and our athletics director. I supervise 12 of our 14 sports in addition to our full internal unit, and then spend a lot of time on issues of student athlete welfare and gender equity within our department. In addition to that, I recently spent 4 years on the Committee on Academics. So really had the pleasure of serving in a role in which I could impact policy at a national level, work closely, for those of you that are in the SEC, with Joe Scoggin from Tennessee on the Committee on Academics, and actually had the fortune to serve as a chair of the subcommittee that makes a lot of the policy and changed the bylaws during the last kind of 2 years with COVID. So I will say serving on the Committee on Academics at a national level was very eye-opening to governance and the way policy is made from an academic standpoint. In addition to that, as was mentioned, I am the immediate past president of N4A. For those of you who don't know what N4A is, it's the National Association of Academics and Student Athlete Development Professionals. So last year was able to serve as the president. So for those of you that are members, hopefully you joined us virtually last year from my house and enjoyed the national convention where we got to listen to speakers like Abby Wambach present to us. I've been involved in N4A for a long time, but in a leadership role for the last 10 years, serving on the board, and really have worked my way into a position to be on the executive team and have the pleasure of serving with some of the most wonderful people that I have met, many of them who have become dear friends on our executive team and within the association. So looking forward to talking to this group. I should say, I know this is an academic student athlete development based conference, obviously came up the ranks within academics and student athlete development, starting at very entry level roles at Ohio State University, and was there for nearly 7 years before transitioning to the University of Missouri, Kansas City in more of a leadership role, and then have worked my way within our current department all the way up to be the interim athletics director for 6 months, which I will say was a wild experience. And an eye-opening experience, and now again back to my role as the Deputy Athletics Director. So welcome the conversation, welcome getting to know you all again on this Friday afternoon.
All right, well, thank you for those words of wisdom. And at this point, we will open it up for questions. So feel free to ask questions to Ursula about what she does now, anything regarding N4A or maybe some other item. We welcome questions. The first one's always the hardest, usually once that first question's asked. All right, we got a shy bunch here, so I'll kind of kick us off here. So the one thing that Ursula did not mention is she did not mention what her undergraduate degree was in. And what studies have shown, if you actually asked a lot of people sort of in their jobs what their undergraduate degree is in, it is not directly related to what they are currently doing. So Ursula, do you want to talk to us about your undergraduate and graduate degrees, what they're in, and how you transition what you are currently doing working with student athletes?
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, you're correct. My undergrad degrees depends. If a student comes and asks me a question, they come in useful at some points when we're short on tutors. But my undergrad degrees are in the field of history. I actually went to university wanting to become a history professor. So I actually studied very specifically European diplomatic history in the 20th century. So graduated with both my undergrad and graduate degrees in history, and actually went on to Ohio State for academic reasons, and went to Ohio State to pursue additional degrees in history, again, thinking one day maybe I'd want to be a history professor. If you've ever been to Ohio State's campus, you can't help but notice the athletics and the athletics department there, and really kind of fell into the athletics department, just needing, as if anybody's been a graduate student, just needing extra money. And really started working there, tutoring student athletes. They were looking for former athletes who really understood student athletes, and started working just again for extra money, and quickly realized I could kind of marry my passion for athletics. Being a former swimmer at the national level, I can marry my passion for athletics with also my passion for academics, and liked the path that athletics brought to students to provide access to many different types of students, and provided support to many different types of students along their path to graduation. So quickly realized I wanted to make a career change, gave up the notion of wanting to be a professor in history, and really wanted to pursue my passion in academics and athletics within an athletics department. So luckily had the degrees already at hand to be able to transition quickly, but learned really a lot of new skills that I never learned through my college degree, which is a lot of the administrative skills that I currently make use of. So a lot of the soft skills that a lot of us work on as we grow and improve in athletics.
Awesome, thank you for sharing. So now that we kind of got the hard part done, got that first question answered. Oh, Lindsay, go ahead, please, and ask your question.
Hi, I'm Lindsay. I'm an academic coordinator for football at East Carolina University. Ursula, you mentioned that you started in academics and kind of worked your way to administration. I'm in my first year here and I would like to eventually get to admin at some point. So can you kind of speak about that journey,
Sure.
and maybe some advice or things that you would give to a young professional looking to get there at some point?
Sure. Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I spent, probably the first 10 years of my career between, again, Ohio State and at UMKC, just strictly in academics. So spent a lot of time learning and growing in that space and doing the best I could within that space. So I think it's always important to do the best you can with the job at hand to be able to continue to rise up. When I came to UMKC, had the opportunity to lead within the academic unit and really build the academic unit up. Our current leader of our academic unit is on this call right now. So if you don't know her, it's Amelia Howard, and she's absolutely fabulous. But one of the things I quickly learned is I can't move up unless I learn to delegate. So unless I learn to help and teach the people around me. So she's been one of those people who's been with me this whole time that I've been at UMKC for nearly 14 years. So really delegating responsibilities, because if someone needed me to step up, I needed to be able to then pass responsibilities to someone else. So learning to delegate, learning to teach other people how to do the job so you can position yourself to be able to move up and release some of that work that you're doing. But I will say some of the things that were really important that I looked at was how can I gain responsibilities outside academics? How can I learn other pieces outside of academics? Because it's important to look at what you were in. So we're all part of an athletics department typically. I know some people might report up to an academic unit or a provost office, but athletics is a business. So it's not just academics, it's not just GPA, APR, student athlete development. It's a business, and it's a well-rounded business that's driven by revenue and expenses. It's driven by wins, it's driven by losses and ticket sales. So I think looking at athletics as a business and what the whole picture is, and really starting to understand the various moving parts within an athletics department. So what is the external unit doing? How can you learn what they're doing, even if it's having lunch with them and learning more what members of the external unit are doing, getting to know your SWA and understanding like what are the stressors, what are they focused on, what type of revenue are they focused on, what budgeting issues are they dealing with on a day-to-day basis, especially for those of us that are in smaller departments where the money is very difficult and we're all part of a larger picture. I think it's also getting to understand how athletics fits into the mission of the university. We are always part of the university, never separate from the university. So learning to talk and articulate the points of how athletics fits into the university. So I think really doing the best you can at your current job and then focusing on what's around you and learning. And so what I was able to do was really shore up the academic unit and then be able to, again, pass responsibilities to individuals within the academic unit so then I could take on more. So looking at other support services units that are similar to academics. So strength and conditioning, sports medicine, compliance. So starting to touch all student services. So if you kind of pull academics back or student athlete development back, it's about serving the student. So what other areas can you be responsible for or have leadership in or be connected to if you're not quite in the position to have leadership, whether it's through mental health, maybe there's a group that you're a part of that's connecting some of these support units. And then from there, I was able to then start to acquire sports supervision. And I think once I started to work closely with our coaches, that's what kind of continued to elevate myself to the ability to kind of serve as the number 2 in the athletics department, gaining the trust of the athletics director, the chancellor's office, making sure all those individuals know that you're there at a moment's notice to carry out the mission of what they're asking. So I don't know if that was helpful at all.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
I think you're muted.
Sorry, I was
That's okay.
here after 2 years still. Can't myself. So we had a couple of questions come into the chat. Samantha is asking, what would be your biggest piece of advice for current graduate students who are interested in roles similar to yours?
I think one of the biggest pieces of advice is just never think that you are just a graduate student. So I always talk to our staff members or current GAs, never limit yourself. So I think always sell yourself properly, never oversell your qualifications, but you're never just a graduate student. So always make sure you're putting your best foot forward. I think other pieces that are important is to really get a depth and breadth of understanding. So if you want to move past academics and do more than just academics, which honestly, I really enjoy. I thought it would be hard moving away from working with the students one-on-one, but I really enjoy working with the coaches one-on-one. It's almost very similar, and academics trains you very well to deal with the coaching staff at that level. So I think it's just getting the depth and breadth of knowledge within an entire athletics department to be able to understand all the moving pieces, because an athletics director has so many things coming across her or his desk that it's almost, until you get there, it's hard to believe the volume of stuff that is coming across your desk that you need to make decisions on, that you need to understand, and you need to know enough to have knowledge, but not necessarily be an expert. That's why you hire the experts in all the units to carry out the mission.
All right. Thank you for your question, Samantha. We have one from Nicole. What has helped you to stay grounded as a female moving up in multiple leadership roles? That's part one of the question. And then the second part is, what advice do you have for people, regardless of their position level, for working in this field?
Sure. I think what has helped me stay grounded? I think I will say when I first started, I think I was, I don't know if the right word's in a hurry, working with my hair on fire. I don't know what one, but I always felt like we had to solve things, get things done right away. So I think it was just what's kept me grounded is learning to slow down, learning to realize what's important, what we need to focus on. But I think the biggest thing that has kept me grounded is just staying empathetic, not losing the piece of me that is truly me, which is the empathy piece. So I try to do the best I can to lead with empathy. So if anyone knows me, they know that, for example, this past week, we made a coaching change because our women's basketball coach moved up and on to a new school. She didn't take any of her staff with her, but it required terminating 4 people. And that's part of my role here is working closely with HR. So stuff like that is, you can still bring human qualities to it. So I think leading with empathy, being empathetic, maintaining the human side of what we do and the people side of what we do has helped to keep me grounded. I also think my children, I'm sure you could guess by my background, two children. They're relatively young, still 9 and 6, but I think they've really helped me to kind of slow down and realize not necessarily what's important, but kind of what the priorities are. And it's okay if something takes till tomorrow or takes to the next day. I think it's just about communicating. So that's what helps keep me grounded. And then what was the second part?
What advice do you have for people, regardless of their position level, for working in this field?
Oh boy, what advice? I think, oh man, I think it's important to, in this business, it's so fast paced and there's so many moving pieces. It's really important to remain coachable, to be open to feedback and different types of feedback. And really listening is an excellent skill that we have in athletics. I think a lot of people just want to vent and be heard, not necessarily have action taken. So I think having good listening skills, communicating, being able to communicate and really understanding the bigger picture in what we're all operating in. I guess the other piece that I've grown into it, I should say, I didn't do this very well in the beginning, is that viewing mistakes as an opportunity to fall forward. So being okay making mistakes, owning your mistakes or owning the situation, but looking at it as a way to fall forward and perhaps, make different decisions the next time that issue arises or that conversation arises.
Great, great words of advice there. Empathy, listening skills, communication. Time and time again, we hear that those are very important skills to be able to have. And we also say, some people say, instead of falling forward, we're failing forward. Thank you, Courtney, for that. Some other questions from our audience. You have some other questions, feel free to type them into the chat, raise your hand. Okay, as you think of some questions. Ursula, you had mentioned kind of a situation that you've gone through currently with the change in women's basketball coach. A lot of times there are aspects of our job we love, and then there are aspects of our job that is extremely difficult. Can you talk about maybe one of the most rewarding aspects of your job?
Sure. I think still to this day, one of the most rewarding aspects is when someone achieves their goals. So whether it's a student athlete graduating and getting across that stage, knowing the struggles that they've had the 4 or 5 years or now 6 years that they have been with us, or seeing our coaches be successful. I spend a lot of time now with our coaching staff, listening to their needs and wants and making sure we do the best we can to execute their needs and wants. And I think seeing them when they are successful, and it's not necessarily just the wins and losses that they get on the field or on the court or on the track. I think it's seeing them achieve their success and being able to move up. For me, I really enjoy giving back to people. And when I first started, it was the student athletes I enjoyed giving back to. Now I spend most of the time with our staff, but it's the same feeling and the same reason. I really enjoy giving back to others and helping them grow and get where they need to be. And whether maybe it might still be at our athletics department and they want to be long-term, or perhaps it's to move up and on to a larger athletics department. So I enjoy kind of giving to people, helping them achieve their goals, and making sure they have what they need to be successful.
Okay, great. Now, can you also maybe talk a little bit, and I know this would maybe vary from institution to institution, when you do have a coaching change and you need to let coaches go, are you the one that's having that conversation with them? Is it HR? How does that go? Especially kind of trying to touch on the empathy side, how might a conversation go?
Sure. Typically, in the past several years, I'm the individual that has the conversation with coaching staff or administrative staff in letting them go. And obviously there's kind of either something has gone wrong and we have tried to correct the issue, but we cannot resolve the issue. So we are letting the individual go. Or we've had a coaching change and there is a lot of collateral pieces to it. So maybe the coach, like recently I mentioned, doesn't take their staff with them and the new coach wants a different staff. So that's me. I'm the one who goes in and talks to all of these individuals and lets them know what's going on, and lets them know also how we intend to operate, again, putting our human side forward. So recently in what we dealt with, we made sure that pay ran for several weeks. We're not just going to end it after 2 weeks. We want to make sure that they have healthcare benefits for X amount of time. So that, yes, that is me going in, having those very difficult conversations with individuals whose lives on the spot we are impacting. During COVID, we had several, I think we had 7 layoffs during COVID. So that was myself going in to talk to our staff, working with our athletics director to make those decisions, but also then executing them on the back end.
Okay, great. And again, it's usually those parts of the job that we don't often talk about. But I thought this would be a great time, being you had mentioned it. We have a question from Lindsay. How has your professional philosophy evolved throughout your time working within athletics?
Wow, that's a really good question, Lindsay. I honestly probably need to think about it to provide a really good answer. I think I think my philosophy has just sharpened. I think I probably couldn't articulate my philosophy 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I think it has just really sharpened, and I've come to know myself a little bit better working in college athletics. We have a great athletics director right now, and I had the pleasure, our previous athletics director was fantastic. She was a female, and she did a really good job helping us be confident in ourselves, especially as women leaders. I think that's what helped sharpen my understanding, but also help me understand who I am as an athletic administrator and how I like to come to work every day, which is, again, even though this is a business and there's a lot of money and there's a lot of stress, I always try to put the human side forward. So maybe that is just listening to someone. Maybe that is making a decision that's in the best interest of the department, but executing it in a way and articulating and communicating in a way in which the most empathy and understanding can be shown to the other, understanding the lens of the other people. So I think I've evolved by just sharpening, knowing who I am and knowing that you can operate through the human lens, as I call it, in college athletics.
Okay, great. Let's see, do we have any other questions? Otherwise, I'll jump onto my something here. All right, so let's maybe switch gears a little bit. You've kind of answered some questions that are dealing with your current position, but can you talk to us about sort of the N4A and how you first became involved in the N4A and then eventually sought out the leadership positions and presidency?
Sure. Well, thank you. So I've been a part of N4A for a long time. And like I said, I think the best thing about N4A, so if you're not a member, please join. We do have student rates and grad rates. So please join if you're not a member of N4A. The best part of N4A is the people. You will meet lifelong friends out of N4A. So it's the people that are the best part. And I got started in N4A because when I was about 20 years ago, just starting out, there was someone who emailed me. He unfortunately just recently passed away, but his name was Dr. Ursula Gurney. He emailed me. We have the same last name. And he's kind of if you don't know who he is, he's kind of one of the premier academic individuals who like to, thank you for the link to N4A. Does everyone know who Dr. Gurney is? Does anyone know? Everyone know? I know I'm talking to lots of faces or pictures and not faces. Okay, we got a yes. So Dr. Gurney has just been very important in college athletics for the last 40 years. And he actually emailed me as a young student at the time, about 20 years ago, just asking if we were related and telling me I needed to join N4A. And I was like, what is this N4A I need to join? And who is this person emailing me? So I joined N4A. I met Dr. Gurney. He took me under his wing. And then I think around about 2012, I started to get involved in the association, went to a couple conferences, did PDI, so the Professional Development Institute. So if you want to learn and grow with an N4A, PDI is excellent. Amelia Howard and Reggie Simpkins have taken over for Kim Durand, leading PDI. So I did PDI in 2009 in South Beach. So I don't know if anyone attended that conference in 2009. I'm not sure I made it to very much of the conference, but I definitely saw the beach. But did enjoy myself, all kidding aside. And by 2012, realized that N4A was a great association and I wanted to be a part of it. And I wanted to be a part of the people that were in N4A. So what I did is I got advice, and the advice I was given, which maybe they were just trying to fill a space, was to join the strategic planning committee. So that's where I really got to know a lot of individuals in leadership roles. And then ended up getting appointed by Bart Bird, who was the president at the time, to be the historian on the board. And then stayed involved in the association. I think I was the historian for many years under various presidents. Then I became a division director. And then Denise Poole, who was the past president from 2 years ago, encouraged me to run for an executive position. I was very nerve-wracking. I have never hustled so hard in my whole entire life for something, but also never wanted something so bad. At that time, I think it was myself and Walt, which hopefully all of you know Walt, and I love him. We're up for the presidency, and then Ashton and some other individuals were up for the vice president #2 positions, and ended up being elected to the presidential position, and have had the pleasure the last 4 years or 3 years of serving on the executive team. And hope last year as president just made a small difference for our association as we move forward in the middle of a pandemic, and saw our association rise to about 2,600 people, which is the largest it's ever been. So N4A has just, for me, it's been about the people. And the friendships that have come out of it, and the close people. There's some board members on this call right now. So it's a great association if you are not already a part of it. I don't know if any others want, there's other board members on this call. So Liz is on this call. I don't know if anyone else wants to say any good words about M4A.
All right. So can you maybe talk about probably when you ran for presidency of N4A, probably never in your wildest dreams did you imagine having to lead it through a pandemic, social unrest that was going on in this world. Can you maybe talk about some of the challenges, maybe what you learned about yourself during the last year?
Sure. Yeah, no, those are excellent questions. And I see Shiv has her N4A shirt on, so I love it. I should have worn mine. That is awesome. Yeah, I never, oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start. Yes, when I became president, you think you've been on the board for a while. It's just kind of, the ship just is moving, right? You're just going, you're just going to go with the flow. That's what I thought, going to go with the flow. This is not going to be that much. And then COVID hit. I think with about 7 weeks to go when Denise Poole was president, and all of a sudden, and God bless her, she deserves a lot of credit. She transformed an in-person convention into a virtual convention in 6 weeks. Like, that is amazing. She's an amazing human who can do those things. And luckily had made the decision early to stay virtual for our convention. But I also had to think about what is N4A and what is N4A to our people, our 2,600 members in this space of COVID. What do our members need? Do we need engagement? Do we need less engagement? But then also, I didn't want to give up the kind of leader in me that also wanted to elevate N4A. So I wanted to continue to elevate it and add to the great things that our past presidents had done, while also still steering us through like completely unknown territory. So I did both at once. It was a lot of work. And what I really learned is, how do you build consensus with a variety of people? How do you be extremely mindful of all the people around you, and making sure to the best of your ability that they know they are seen and appreciated? We have so many committees and committee chairs. Those individuals are doing such hard work on behalf of our association. So started things like the committee corner, so people hopefully could be more seen or heard, or just reaching out to those individuals and having Zoom meetings. We also did things, we elevated the brand, so we completely shifted the brand of N4A to make it pop, to make it more professional, to make it more appealing to people in our association. So it was a huge learning experience, and it was interesting to have a full-time job and then also to have N4A at the same time, which really became my full-time job, but couldn't have done it without the great people around me on the board, on the committees, within my own department, without my athletics director giving me the time and space to do all of these things. But I think building consensus, pushing your vision forward, knowing what elevation looks like and going for it. Don't just sit back and be okay with how it always is. What is elevation? And elevation is not dismissive of the past. It is building on the past, because we have great foundation in N4A. So I think those are a lot of the things I learned, and that people matter. Like, people matter. It's so important to reach out to the people to make sure, how are you doing? I see you. Thank you for the work that you're doing. I think those little touch points go a really long way.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Questions? Any questions from the audience? All right, well, I'll ask another question then. So you talked about the past, kind of what your undergraduate and graduate degrees were and how you got into the field. What are your future plans?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I think the main question I always get is, are you going to be an athletics director? Because apparently everybody wants to be an athletics director. I don't know. I think not right now. I don't want to be an athletics director, but I say not right now. I think eventually, yes, I would like to be an athletics director. I feel like I have a lot of room to grow, but I have a lot of leadership that I want to give. I think leading N4A really helped to spark that desire to lead and continue to lead amongst a variety of different people. So maybe it's getting involved with another national organization and seeing if there's a full-time role there. We're very fortunate here in Kansas City that Women Leaders in College Sports is actually headquartered here in Kansas City. Patty Phillips actually just lives a few blocks from my house. We're able to just grab coffee together, which, I mean, that's the best mentor ever that you can have coffee with. So I think I am preparing myself to the best of my ability to be an athletics director, but I'm also on a daily basis preparing myself to be the best I can be in my spot. So I never lose sight of where I currently am and how I can learn and grow better as a deputy athletics director, but always paying attention to how can I prepare myself to be an athletics director when the time is right. So maybe, and I don't know, is there a right time to be an athletics director? I don't know. I think it's kind of like having kids. I don't think you're ever really ready. But I think you just, when the time's right, it comes, and you do the best you can to prepare yourself for that and continue to move forward. I think that looks like it might tie to Liz's question right there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so do you want to expand on what keeps you motivated to keep moving athletics forward?
Sure. I think what keeps me motivated is the good that comes out of college athletics. I think college athletics is an excellent vehicle for many different things. I think it's an excellent vehicle for our students to learn and grow socially, to learn and grow through their education. But it's also a great vehicle for us as staff or coaches to also learn and grow and really be part of the mission of what higher education contributes to this whole entire country. I think for me, one of the more eye-opening ways I was able to see that was serving on the recent NCAA committee to overhaul the SAT and ACT. And listening to Mark Emmert talk about how this was a pivotal moment that we could be on the front lines of social change. And that social change wasn't just about the ACT or SAT, it's what it meant to the shifting away from the using of these standard test scores to the nation and to the people that are taking these test scores. So I think college athletics is a great front porch to comment, not just on a university, but on our society, and is a great, because it is the front porch, is a great tool to hear our voices, see our student athletes, see our staff. So it's a great way to help bring change, to execute change, to see change, because we don't always see it. So seeing those changes, and it's not just in this country, I'm actually international, so I'm from Canada. So I think college athletics in the United States especially, but as it is spreading and other places, can be used for the same purposes.
Great. So you mentioned change. If we kind of look at the last year within athletics, we had NIL, we've had the transfer portal. There's talk about should student athletes in certain sports be considered employees of the university. How do you go about maybe educating the coaches and keeping the coaches up to date on this quickly changing and evolving field of college athletics?
Yes, I think that's a good question. Also, I think some days I wonder how I keep myself up to speed on the college athletics. I think, having the privilege of serving on a national committee was a good window. So for 4 years, I had really good access to know what was going on. I will say now that the access has changed because I'm not on the committee on academics anymore, it is harder to keep track of things. I wish there was a way where those that serve on high-ranking committees who got some of that information, the rest of us got the same types of information, or at least the high levels of communication to best understand what's going on around us. But I just try to read a lot. I try to keep up with the various news sources, obviously stay in touch with our compliance officer. We talk regularly. I do my best just to stay in touch with colleagues to see what they're doing at their universities, what pain points they have, how they're executing it. One of my roles is I actually work closely with our general counsel. So we're part of the system. So we work closely with our counterparts who also service Mizzou athletics to deal with NIL, game contracts, employment issues, all kinds of pieces of the puzzle. But we do try to communicate. We have head coaches meetings regularly. I supervise, as I said, 12 of our 14 sports. So I meet every 2 weeks with the head coaches of those sports individually, where we talk about some of these issues. And not all the issues are touching them. The transfer portal for us affects basketball, but like myself and our men's soccer coach are talking a lot about the 21st century model for men's soccer. Myself and volleyball are talking about the changes that volleyball could occur or not occur, depending on what the board wants to do in the coming days. So I think it's just staying on top a lot of these news tickers that we get to be able to best let the coaches know what's going on.
Okay, great answer there. So you mentioned reading. So what book would you recommend, or books would you recommend, maybe on leadership or working with in athletics?
Sure. I don't know about in athletics, but I will. I have one of my books I'm reading right now is right here. So I'm reading Daring Greatly. So I'm a big fan of Brene Brown. So I just love her. That's where you can get some of my desires to be an empathetic leader from, and a vulnerable leader from. I love Brene Brown and all her books. I listen to her podcast. So she has a great podcast called Dare to Lead. So on Spotify, and then she has another one called Unlocking Us, if you want to work on your personal side, which I also suggest we all do too. So Brene Brown, reading Brene Brown book. Another one I'm about to start is Atomic Habits. So I want to read that one. I listened to the author James Clear talk on Brene Brown's podcast about how to develop better habits rather than setting goals. So those are two of the books that I'm looking at right now. So Daring Greatly and Atomic Habits.
Okay, great. And I've heard of both of those books as well.
I will say, being a busy mom, reading is not my strong suit. I don't know if anybody can relate to that. So that's why I've turned to the podcast, because I can listen to it and do the dishes, or listen to it and be at a soccer game, or listen to it and be in the car if I can hear anything above the screaming that's going on.
Awesome. So being a mom, and you said you have a daughter, being it's 50 years of Title IX, we have a lot of women on this call, working with female student athletes. What advice would you give all of us?
Oh my goodness. I think it's just important to use your voice. Do not shy away from using your voice. We all know what we're doing. We are all great leaders. We are all powerful women, and we need to be at the table. However, the table is defined. And I think when you're at the table, again, whatever the table is, maybe it is leadership at the academic unit. Maybe it's leading tutors or student athlete development, or maybe it's executive leadership with the athletics director or chancellor. Use your voice. Be confident in what you're doing, be strong in what you're doing. And I think that's, again, what I had the privilege of serving under a female athletics director, and, was a lot more, I don't know if the word's shy, but quiet at the time. But she constantly was pulling me up to use my voice. And I don't mean that literally, but like just pulling me along to use my voice. So that's what I always try to now with the females around me, do the same thing, encouraging them to use their voice, to think strategically, but never shy away from what we know is the best path for the athletics department, the academic unit, the student athlete development unit, whatever it may be. And just like I tell my daughter every day, we talk about being strong. I've taught her how to do power posing, her and her little friend that's up the street. But all these things are important to ensure that we're confident, because we still, higher ed athletics still is dominated by men, and they do a great job. But us women can do an outstanding job leading these athletics departments. We need more women in leadership roles, but we also need to support each other. How do we as women support each other? How do we lift each other up? How do we give each other opportunities? And that's one of the things I've tried through M4A. Even this past month, we did a membership Monday that celebrated women, and there's certain women that I think should be our next incoming presidents. Well, they were all tabbed to show up on membership Monday because we need to expose them more. So I think it's also thinking about how you can give back to the women around you. How do you lift them up and position them to be seen?
Awesome, great answer. So being we're on a Friday, depending on where we're located, for some of us, it might be closer to 5 o'clock than others. But what do you do to maintain work-life balance? What do you do for fun?
That's a really good question. What do I do for fun? I wouldn't say like I'm super fun in the traditional sense. I like to do things that are relaxing. So for example, I like to get up early in the morning, and I like to just shop online. I don't buy anything necessarily, but I like to put a lot of stuff in my shopping cart while I'm drinking a coffee, and nobody is around to bug me. I have a Peloton. That's one thing I got during COVID. It was also you did a great job leading N4A gift to myself. I got myself a Peloton, so I try to keep up with that. I'm not always super good at it. I'm kind of on the bandwagon, off the bandwagon. So I try to do that, but really, because I have little kids and they keep me very busy, my unplugging is spending time with them and really just spending time with them. I think when I first had kids, even when I was on maternity leave, I was like, no, I have to be working 24/7 in athletics. I have to work until, my knuckles are bleeding, because that's the definition of a good employee. And that's simply not true, right? It is okay to put it down, put it away, take a break. I tell our staff members who don't have kids, like, take a break. I don't care if you're going to sit under a tree, go take a break. Everybody deserves to get away. So for me, putting down my phone and just spending quality time with the kids, whether it's at their sporting event, or my daughter likes to play Barbies and do makeup and all kinds of things. So just spending that time with them, unplugging. But again, you can find me at 5:30 online shopping. So feel free to text me if you want to at that time in the morning.
Well, the one thing I could say, the danger about having a shopping cart full of items is the mouse pads on the laptops are sensitive to cat paws. So if you have a cat walking across your laptop, you might want to be careful as to what's pulled up on your screen.
That is true. Or throughout the day, if you leave it in your shopping cart throughout the day, you're going to get emails from Target or Madewell or J. Crew that you have stuff left in your shopping cart, and come back.
All right, does anybody in our audience have any sort of last minute questions for Ursula before we wrap up? I think Nicole kind of said it very well in the chat. You've been very inspirational. You've empowered all of us. You have a question, Marquise?
Yes, I do have a question. Hello, everyone. So I was typing it in the chat as you were asking. So I was just going to ask, like, what are some key things that probably your male counterparts have done for you, like that help lift you up and everything, and to support you as a woman and everything? So, because I know it's a male-dominated area. And we do, like, I feel like the same, like how you're talking, we need to make sure that those that are in those positions are also have a voice to lift up the women as well, to make sure they're moving along.
Yeah, I love this question, and I am like so thankful that you're even thinking this way. That's like, thank you. Love it. I think one of the things that I have really seen, and when I served as our interim athletics director for 6 months, and throughout this past fall, I worked very closely with Mike Alden, who is the former athletics director at Mizzou. He was there for about 17 years, and one of the things that he showed me is like how you can, as a leader, bring somebody with you. So make sure they understand what the decision making is, right? So like, why are you making the decision? Maybe they're not making the decision, but why are you making it, and helping explain it to them. Also doing things like, if you are going to a meeting, bring them with you, bring somebody with you. So he would be meeting with our chancellor or our president, and he would make sure that I was there, so those are things that I've seen him do for me. Our current athletics director does the same thing. He'll make sure like I'm there with him in these meetings. One, to be able to operate so I know what's going on, so I can act on his behalf if needed, but also to bring me along, right? If you're not seen and people don't see you as the next leader or a leader or a trusted colleague, how are they going to know that this person is ready and waiting and doing a heck of a job right now? And if you need them for higher level stuff, they can do it. So it's like, how do you expose other people and their greatness? Do you put them on a committee? Do you recommend them for something? Do you bring them to a meeting? Do you teach them why you're making the decisions that you're making? Do you allow them to fail and let them know it's okay? This wasn't the best decision, but it's okay. You're okay. The department's okay. Let's just maybe make another decision next time, and kind of lead them to grow in their confidence. So I think providing women the opportunity to be seen and heard is really important.
Okay, great answer, great question. So just to be mindful of everybody's time, I want to thank Ursula so much for being able to join us for this last hour. It's been very inspirational. I want to thank all of our participants for your questions, for your contributions to the chat, and just for even being here and listening. Again, one of the skills that Ursula said is kind of vital, communicating and being a good listener. And before you all sign off, I'm just going to throw our slide up here for session evaluation. If you could just take a moment to fill that out. So hopefully you're seeing you want to complete the session evaluation for this session. And then at the end of the day, or when you're done attending a conference evaluation, we have one more concurrent session left to go before we end with the closing session. So thank you everybody for your time. I hope you're having a full Friday, and that have an enjoyable weekend.